Hey, good morning. So today we're having a conversation with my good friend, Scotty Lander. He's a Christ follower. He's a husband of over 20 years, right? 20 years now. 5 kids.
Yep.
A lot of prayer there. 5 kids. Business owner, entrepreneur, coach. Run the PGA Tour for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the UNLV Hall of Fame
Yep.
for golf. Outdoorsman. Respected member of the community. So I've really built you up here.
Yeah, exactly. Setting me up here.
Really setting you up. But so I guess to say that you're a busy guy would be a big understatement, right?
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, listen, Scotty's a great guy. You're an awesome guy. I'm so glad you're in my life, man. Thanks for taking the time to have this conversation today, a little coffee, a little conversation, Got the fire going.
Yeah, glad we could finally get together.
We won't tell anybody what's really in the coffee cups.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's a real honor. And, hopefully there's one person out there that we can touch today by encouraging them in some way. So excited.
It's cool. Kind of like we were talking about before we started here. I think just being willing to have some hard conversations about hard stuff.
Sure.
And we're coming off arguably one of the weirdest years I know, definitely in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And probably as a country, as a culture, coming off all that individually, collectively, it's been nutty.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
So 2020, to say it's been quite a year for all of us, again, understatement. But this has turned out to be a year that will forever change your life. And so really glad we can talk about that today. So can you just kind of briefly walk us through, your tragic accident and like what's really honestly changed the trajectory?
Yeah, I totally don't mind stepping you through it. Was hunting on October 23rd. I had gotten a deer tag, and my father-in-law was with me that day, Bob Fisk. And we drove up, nice fall morning, gorgeous. Drove up about an hour and a half from Kingman to a special spot that we like to go, and just awesome morning, enjoying glassing and no wind and just beautiful country. And
so awesome.
It is, yeah. I just really enjoy that aspect of it. I look forward to it every year. And, I had a muzzleloader hunt. For certain people don't always know different types of guns, but that type of gun provides you with better hunts sometimes to give us better opportunity.
Right.
And any case, we're up there and spotted some deer, and my father-in-law decided, he's like, hey, you found them, I'm going to guide you in. And he sent me off to go chase them and tried to kind of radio me in, and got up on about 80 yards from him, and I pulled up to shoot, and my gun clicked, which is very odd for a primer and a muzzleloader to do that. And a lot of people that hunt a lot and shoot those guns, it's very rare that happens.
Right.
And it clicked, and I was like, what the heck? So I got the primer out, looked at it, put it back in, and I pulled the trigger. The stupid deer didn't decide to move and let me take another shot at him, or try to take my first shot at him after the first one clicked. And I shot, and all I remember is to myself, I'm like, man, what did that gun kick so bad? I'm like, that's what went through my mind. I'm like, what in the heck?
You've shot guns.
Yeah, I shot a lot of guns,
and know what it feels like.
And I'm like, that just was crazy. And I looked down at my hand, and basically it was disintegrated. My thumb was hanging there, and it just was numb. I didn't feel like immediate pain. I just felt like almost a numbness, and it was just dead. I couldn't move it. Still kind of can't move it. But immediately just everything flashed. They always say that, like, your life flashes before your eyes or whatever. And it really did. Like, it just instantly changed. I'm like, I thought to myself, I can't do this. This just changed anything I can do. In a lot of ways, like, just tons of thoughts just immediately went through my mind. But the biggest thought was the bleeding, because it was bleeding so badly for the first few minutes.
And it's not like you're right down the street from a hospital? Or?
Correct. I was an hour and a half from anything. My father-in-law heard the shot, knew kind of where I was at. It was about a half a mile away, but I was in the trees and you can't really see where I'm at exactly. I kind of knew, but once he had to get down to where he was going to have to come find me, it's easy to lose sight of me. And I immediately called Bob on the radio. I was bleeding out pretty bad and started passing out and losing consciousness from some of it shock, some of it maybe blood pressure. We don't really know.
Right.
But luckily within minutes, the blood vessel had constricted enough, I think, because I was in pretty good shape, the doctor said, and my body took over and stopped the bleeding very quickly, which was great. But I think due to the shock of it, it was causing me to lose consciousness a couple times. I tried to call my father-in-law on the radio immediately. I couldn't get him. I tried to call on the phone, couldn't get him. He heard me yell because it was across the canyon,
right,
and I needed his help. So he immediately started sprinting down to the truck. And
there's a visual for you. Bob sprinting.
Yeah, no.
He
had another
his
gear.
His knees didn't hurt. He found another gear.
He had another gear for sure. And so I was not getting a hold of him, and I'm trying to get him where I needed to go, not being able to do that. I wanted to call somebody, and I wasn't honestly sure if I was going to live. You know, to be honest with you, like it went through my head, and I'm like, I gotta make that phone call to my wife, you know, and let her know just that I love her, and you know, it was a tough call for sure.
Can't imagine. There's no box for that,
yeah.
Right? Until you're in that situation.
So I tried not to panic her, but let her know I was in an accident, and so she immediately called people, started praying, and I ended up having to sprint down to Bob about 500 or 800 yards away down to his truck because I didn't want to wait for him to get up to me, which was hard because I had to kind of run holding my hand and all my crap. I don't know why I didn't set my backpack down and all. I just had it on me. And
we'll probably have it, right?
It was weird. I just wasn't thinking.
You're just used to what you normally do, and you're just doing it.
I was trying to get my wife possible coordinates because I wasn't sure if Bob was going to see me and find me and all that stuff. And we connected somehow, and he was at his truck and I could see him. I got down to him and we barreled out of there about 40 miles an hour on a dirt road that probably should be doing about 5 miles an hour on.
That's why we drive trucks.
He got on with 911 and they were going to send an ambulance, and not very nicely, I told them that's not going to work. And I told the dispatcher that that's not going to be an option.
Right.
And Bob tells a different story. I think I said a few choice words I probably shouldn't have said, but honestly, I remember praying and just asking the Lord like out loud to help, you know, and that was very surreal. Almost felt strange. I vividly remember it. And we started driving towards the road because, I mean, we knew we had to meet the ambulance somewhere. And after we determined the ambulance wasn't going to work, I go, Bob, get me up to the skywalk because I knew they had air and medical there.
Right.
And that was a good probably 30 minutes from where we were, but it was the fastest choice. And, you know, that's on Qualified Indian Reservation land and different laws, and
right.
He ended up just barreling through the security, and we didn't even stop. We just went through the dirt and got to the medical. And when I got there, they're like, yeah, you need air vac, like now. Like they kind of freaked out.
Yeah.
And
they could obviously see
they could see my hand,
the situation,
terrible side of it, and started pumping me full of morphine and all their stuff and trying to keep me calm. Got the air ambulance there in about 30 minutes. And they flew me to Sunrise Medical. I had to wait about 5 hours for surgery, but an amazing part of this where I know God was involved is he sent one of the best surgeons in the Southwest United States that I happen to do research on now, knowing how well known she is and the place she works for, how well known she is, which is awesome. Her name is Dr. Wang. And she decided, you know, most doctors, she told me, would have just taken my thumb off because it was too difficult. But I had one blood vessel that was alive after that amount of time. She decided to try to put it together. It took 4.5 hour surgery. I got out of surgery about 11:30 at night. And it was successful. She didn't know if it would work, but you know, a week and a half later, she knew it had taken. So I had to remain in the hospital for a few days, which was pretty torturous because that hospital is not meant for that type of care. And so I had to just try to get myself out of there and kind of fake a few things and how well I felt just to get home, because they were just pumping me full of a lot of junk, and it was tough to take, and I wasn't getting the help I needed in there. I just needed to be with family and be closer to home. And so I got home and started the journey, and unfortunately, the journey led to massive infections in my hand. I had to get, I didn't say, but I broke, I think it was 12 bones in my hand and my wrists, on top of my thumb being redone. I think I had 50 stitches.
Basically, it was detached.
Yeah, it was detached and hanging there.
Right.
Some of you have seen photos, some of you haven't, but
yeah, I remember the picture, the first picture, showing the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
Essentially filleted. I mean, the thumb was hanging out, every finger was.
Correct. It was just a bone sticking up.
Just about, and so obviously we're looking at this going, how in the world is that thing even detached
Correct.
at all?
Yeah. And so that's a long story, but that's where we're at. And I've had many checkups and all stitches removed and infections. And, on top of it, I got COVID. And like I was just telling you before we talked, with COVID and my infection, which ended up being MRSA, put me in the hospital for about 5 or 6 days. I can't remember, up in Flagstaff, but that was a very humbling time. Like it was very difficult. And I reached out to you and Matt and Carl for prayer. And the whole time I knew the whole church was praying, and I knew my family and everybody else was praying, which I know is some of what we're going to discuss. But that was very encouraging as well.
Yeah.
But I had to reach out for prayer when sometimes I want to hold things in a little bit and not be vulnerable. Or
I think it's men. It's not easy to reach out and ask for help when when things are pretty healthy. I think I know I've been hospitalized several times for my back, some things like that, and ultimately you kind of go internal, right? Because then you're faced with all of your own insecurities and everything like that. But as a man, like, you don't want to feel like you're less than, So to reach out and ask for help, you're already feeling pretty low. But I thought that was one of the coolest things, when you were intentionally reaching out, because I know how hard that is, and we'll go into that a little bit, but the value in that and the invitation to, for me personally, to be invited into that, like, hey, I'm inviting you into, my trauma, my pain, and my recovery and the process. I don't want to walk through it alone, and I want you to be part of that. It's huge.
Yeah.
So from the other side, one side for you, for being vulnerable, the other side for the people that you invited in, we got to walk. Like, I still get to walk with you through this, through the pain and through the victories, right? Because we definitely have a few things to be pretty thankful for.
I had to humbly accept some counsel from family and another family friend, the importance of reaching out and being vulnerable and saying, hey, I need that. Yeah. I need that bond of prayer to leadership, and not just hold it in. Yeah. So I decided to take that advice and do it. And so I reached out that morning, and I sent you photos and grossed everybody out on my nasty infections. So,
man, there was so much transparency and vulnerability there, and man, I was like, man, that took a lot of courage, Again, I know when I'm hurting or when I'm not doing okay, but man, so to see that, man, that really meant a lot to me. It's revealed more about your character to me, which I already know. I want to talk about a couple other quick things, a little bit about the accident. So one, I want to recognize something, that there's another element that happened. So we understand, there was an explosion of some kind, whatever. The scope of your rifle was found like 60 feet away.
Correct.
So, and we understand that if you've done any research or anything else, you understand that scope was this way.
Mm-hmm.
So, miracle number one, the fact you're sitting here today, man, is a huge victory and testimony that God's not done with you yet.
Yeah.
You know, he's got a few more things planned, you know, because I think that when something like that happens, I mean, the fact you're sitting here is a miracle. Actually looking at, you know, anybody that understands physics or anything like that understands that we know what should have happened there. And so for that kind of force, for that to be where it was, to be that far away, intervention.
Yeah, and I think I didn't even mention, I mean, obviously, I said I shot the gun, but obviously it blew up on the barrel, blew up on my left hand.
Right.
This is my hand today, which some of you have seen it a lot worse. I mean, it's pretty incredible that I even have that. But like you said, the gun and the barrel blew up when I was shooting, and it completely, you know, blew this out.
Yeah.
But like you said, it obviously, I didn't mention that, so it's a great point you brought up, because not only did I get an amazing surgeon on one day she happened to be working, but another God thing is that scope missed my face by probably a half an inch, because it had to go at an angle from here and blew my hat off, because I knew it blew my hat off because it was on the ground and I had blood all over it. And so it had to have been within an inch to half an inch.
Right.
And if that had to blow a scope 60 feet behind me, the amount of force that entailed would have probably stuck in my head and killed me, which I know after reading it has happened a lot to people, that scopes have blown off people's eyes and head.
And we're talking about a scope too that weighs probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 2.5 pounds.
Yeah, it's pretty heavy. Yeah.
So we're not talking a BB gun scope.
No, it's
we're talking a pretty
nice
legit,
scope.
nice scope.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring that part.
Yeah, that's a great point.
I think that was huge.
Yeah.
You know, because you know, from someone that I shoot myself, so I understand. You know, those things that happen to go, that's crazy. That's only intervention. That's only God.
Yeah, that's a huge point.
Another thing I wanted to talk about was when I got to meet with Bob and Clint that afternoon when they made it back to Bob's house. And I called him right away and told him what was happening.
I didn't know you met with him.
I did. I mean, obviously, you know, you had just gone through a very traumatic event, and they were both experiencing their own trauma. You know, and so one of the really cool conversations was with Bob. You know, because he's telling the story of when you guys are in the truck and everything, and you know, and I love Bob because he's pretty animated, you know, and he's like, man, we're barreling down the road, we're doing all this, and what was amazing, he was like, we're doing all this, Scotty's like holding his hands, barely even attached, and you had a consciousness, an awareness that you were on the phone, having conversations, giving him instructions what to do, having the clarity of thought to go to the skywalk. And I remember him telling all this, and he's visibly very shaken. And he's like, I don't know how I did it. Like it was a sense of awareness and everything that you shouldn't have had. And we can chalk that up to adrenaline, we can chalk that up to shock and everything else, but I think there's something deeper that you tap into.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously you're a very driven guy, very motivated guy. You know, and I think, you know, I'm sure pulling into some of that stuff too, but it was really cool from that perspective, hearing that part of the story, you know, that he was absolutely in awe, like, you know, because he was in shock and he didn't know what to do. And you had an awareness of his shock and just kind of took control of the situation, you know, and he said, and he mentioned too, like you'd be talking and then you'd just be praying. And you'd be talking, and then you'd just be praying. And he said he was so moved by your prayers, like in between everything. It was like a one continuous conversation. You know, 1 minute you get a few expletives coming out and you're upset and everything, but the next second you're right there with God, all in it. And so that was really beautiful, man. And so I don't know how much of those conversations you had, but that was something that really stuck out to me. You know, hearing him tell that component of the story from his view.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't remember all that. I don't know, I guess God just gave me the wisdom to figure things out. I didn't think I don't have much of a choice, you know. I was like, I might as well do something to try to help during this point. If I can get another person going or get coordinates better or whatever. Right. I had to figure it out. I just did it. But the prayer during that time was, I do remember crying out loud. It's pretty vivid still, like I was there almost. It's kind of surreal, to be honest with you. But, I'm glad I had Bob there to help me because, he didn't panic at all. I could see the fear in his eyes when he saw it, but he wasn't panicking because he's been, involved with police work for 25 years and understands the importance of staying calm, and he did a great job. I'm just glad I didn't wait for the ambulance because then I would have ended up in Kingman. Then I would have had to fly out to Vegas, and who knows how much extra length and cost and everything else there would have been.
There's definitely a lot of different forms of intervention.
I'm glad I just flew out and made it simple. But yeah, that's a great point. So
that was awesome, man. So I think, taking all that, listening to all that, I think it kind of leads into this next question. Like, how has all this tested your faith?
Yeah, that's a great question. You could go a lot of different ways with that. Mm-hmm. Testing my faith, I don't know if I would. It definitely is a test. It's not like it hasn't tested my faith, but I've never felt really angry at God for this. I have struggled with thoughts of how it's happened, or maybe something could have been different or whatever, but obviously he allowed it. And I think I've seen enough people go through tragedies where I knew I could not go that direction and backwards of hating everything and being angry the whole time. I had to force myself immediately to think of, what do you want out of this? How can I overcome this? How are you going to help me overcome it? What do you want me to see? Obviously he's let it happen for a reason. Obviously tested my faith, if you can use that word. It was tested. It is being tested currently, and it will be tested in the future. But I just know that there's really no other option, way of thinking, because I've seen so many people go down that road of thinking and getting so angry and blaming God and making it his fault, and why would he allow this to happen? And I've known that there's way worse things that have happened to people out there, and they've done so much better than I've even handled it. And I keep thinking that, and that's what keeps me going a little bit. I'm like, there's people who have lost multiple limbs and are quadriplegic and can't see, and they're still like praising God or being a positive human being and finding a way to touch others people's lives. And like, not only, I lost potentially a hand for a little bit, but it wasn't my right hand. I can write with my right hand still. That's my dominant hand. I try to just focus on each little positive thing, and it's hard because I can't move my thumb much right now. I can barely move my hand, and it feels, handicapped in a lot of ways, but I know there's positives of overcoming that and getting on the right path to getting it strengthened. So I don't know if that helps answer that question.
No, I think it's huge because I think you said it, and it's kind of a broad question, right? Mm-hmm. And I think anytime, our faith is constantly being tested, and we press everything up against that relationship with God, right?
Yeah.
But when we go through something that's real trauma, I think there's great big question marks, and how is that, and obviously from the conversations we had and everything, I've watched you lean into God more, or in other circumstances, I've seen people get angry, withdraw, and I'm sure you've run the gamut of all those emotions.
And don't get me wrong, I don't blame anybody for being upset. Like, I don't mean at all to make it seem like it's not easy. It is hard. I feel like I've made a conscious choice to not go that direction.
That's huge.
In my mind. And I don't blame anybody that's gone through tragedies where they have gone that route, because I think it's normal to be upset. And I've had moments where I'm upset, and I have asked myself, I have cried a lot. I have been in a lot of pain to where I'm angry at the pain, and I'm like, this is taking forever. Like, how come it's not getting better? I have those thoughts, so I want to make that clear.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being transparent about that, because we do, right? No matter what, I can only imagine, like, so the kind of full gamut of emotions that you run. I remember even, when Amy and I walked the Camino, last summer, where I told everybody, it was every day, you're breaking through a different wall, mm-hmm. right? And it was, and it was spiritual, and it was emotional, and it was physical, and it was multiple times a day. you know, that they was going through this thing. So I'm sure it's the same with you.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's a big deal.
Yeah.
To be able to just go, man, this is real. And yeah, it sucks. There's times when like I said, you're crying, you're angry, or whatever. But at the end of it, you pressed in. Like,
Yeah.
you're like, God, there is no other option. Like so you made a conscious choice. You know, I think that's a really big deal. Amy and I have kind of had a saying for years that, you know, claim victory in Christ through all life circumstances. Like, there's always, no matter how bad things are, no matter what's going on, there's always victory in Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So leaning into that. So I think that's good, you know. And so, yeah, I did answer, you know, that part of the question is, you know, tested, but there's no doubt in your mind, you know, that was a direction to lean into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lean into that.
Yeah, I chose to lean in and put it that way because I think we all have
Yeah.
a conscious choice to make that decision. And I just knew it wouldn't get me anywhere if it didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm like, if it helped me get there faster by being angry, I'd probably get there. But it wasn't going to help me.
That wasn't going to help the
No,
situation.
I'm like, I might as well just.
It's like it feels good in the moment,
Yeah.
but it's not. Well, again, I think there's like you said, you made a conscious choice,
Yeah.
and an intentional choice to lean into that. There was a really cool moment, kind of early on. You had invited Matt and Carl and Clint and I over, and to pray over you and to anoint you with oil. A really special moment. And what was really, really cool about that moment was you had your two oldest sons there.
Mm-hmm.
And you invited them to be part of it. And right before we prayed for you, you explained to them the process.
Mm-hmm.
So you used a time of vulnerability to also explain to them, like, look, this is what Scripture says. You know, have people pray over you, you know, anoint you with oil.
Yeah.
And used it as a teaching opportunity for your boys.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it was Jake, he's Superman.
Hmm.
You know, but it was such a cool moment to see them be a part of that. And, you know, 1 Timothy 4:12, you know, Paul tells Timothy, set an example. You know,
Yeah.
and so that was cool because you were setting an example for your boys, using that moment as a teaching opportunity for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, I mean, for me personally, man, I thought that was rock star in my book. Like, that was really, really cool.
I feel like anytime there's an opportunity, I think I would kind of credit my coach in business to anytime there's an opportunity for you to go through something and you can bring somebody else to learn with you at the same time, to take that opportunity. And I wanted them to be a part of it because, number one, you're already going to be here, but I knew the importance of them needing to see that I was leaning into that so they would in the future and understand why.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose to do that. And, you know, the other two little ones could have been in there, but the older ones could understand it more. So I chose to have my two older ones in there.
Yeah. Hey, I just wanted to say that was a really cool moment.
Yeah, it was.
And
I'm glad I did that.
that was just one of those really proud to be your friend
Yeah.
kind of moments. Like, man, that was just awesome. Are there any other ways, you know, you feel like you kind of help lead and navigate your family through some of this? And obviously that was a huge leading moment for you with your boys. How's it been? Is there any other things that have come up specifically?
Well, I came home right after when I first got home, which was very emotional, seeing everybody, and I broke down when I got home and just told them, like, we're going to have to work together on this. There's big changes. You know, you're going to have to help me and your mom a lot, and we need you guys bonding together, not fighting, and doing extra things and taking the load that I'm not able to do and distributing it out. And so that was a big moment for us. And I feel like they've done that. It takes a lot of vulnerability. I just told them, I mean, my son might have said that something about Superman, or if anyone can do it, my dad can do it. And that is very motivating, and I'm very encouraged by that. But at the same time, I mean, it's extremely humbling, and you have to be very vulnerable. You know, when your wife's helping you put your pants on, or buckle a shirt, or
Been there, done that.
you know, it's as a man, you don't want to have to depend on that stuff, but I can't grab anything with my left hand still very much, other than maybe a pound or less still, because it's still extremely painful. There's a lot of pressure. So I'm only able to do things. I mean, I can't even unscrew certain caps of a bottle of water sometimes. I have to hold it in there. And I'm not saying that to feel sorry. I'm just saying, like,
You're adapting.
You have to get their buy-in and understanding and vulnerability of a man to depend on your wife to do like everyday simple things. And I know there's worse stories out there than the dependability of people have of their wives helping them, but it is humbling just going through it in my way. So.
Well, I think something cool about that is I think, a lot of times people think, leading or leadership is just being out front, doing everything all the time, and whatever else. But a big part of leadership is actually, being vulnerable. A big part of leadership is actually, number one, we have to learn how to follow first.
Yeah.
Right? But a big part of that leadership is knowing when you need help, is knowing that, you need to be able to depend on others, and so that's, whereas men especially, we can view that as a form of weakness, right? Like somehow we're inadequate or we're weak or whatever. It's actually strength, to be able to do that. So I think that's pretty awesome. I mean, I've watched you walk all through this with just incredible strength, and I know for me, I'm personally inspired, by watching you do that. And so, how do you think you've managed to maintain? Because to me, you have a great attitude. I'm always telling people, your attitude is awesome, like, through all this. How do you think you've managed to maintain that attitude and just really an unwavering, faith in this? So what's your motivation behind that?
Number one, it's not easy. You have to choose. Again, just like you said, you have a choice. No one's forcing you to have a bad attitude. You're choosing to have a bad attitude about it. So, like I said, it's not helping me to go that route. Although there's moments of doubt, there's moments of fear, there's moments of pain. You struggle with it, but I choose to have that attitude each day.
Yeah.
And I wake up. So what happens in the morning is I have routines in the morning, which anybody can adapt, but it starts with my personal time with God. In the morning of waking up, and I have a red light therapy machine that is infrared red light, and it's a timer. So I use that time, which has been a benefit of this thing, because I wasn't praying like this before, but I wake up. So some people say gratitude or meditation, but ultimately it's prayer for me as a Christian to God. And usually that involves gratitude with that, and you're being thankful for what you do have. So I try to remind myself, I have this hand, I have two eyes, I didn't go through my head, I did get a good surgeon, I got all this, I will be able to use my hand in the future, all that stuff. So I try to focus on all of that, to where it gets me in the right set and frame of mind during the day to start. Because if you start off terribly or negative and you're angry, and I realize not everyone can have extra time in the morning, but I think everyone can create that time. It just a lot of times takes waking up a little earlier, but it starts your day off that way. So I'd say that's one of the biggest things that's made a difference, is choosing that. And then reading. I feel like everything's been more vividly opened up for me. I haven't really missed a day of reading my Bible. I've been reading a devotional on my phone, but I've been reading my Bible on my phone because it's easier to scroll, because having two hands and moving pages sounds stupid, but
thank you for technology.
It's not very easy, because I'm trying to hold one hand on there. Yeah. I am more of an open, real Bible reader, but lately everything's been on my phone, so I'm not looking at anything else before I start my day. I don't get distracted with emails. I don't get distracted with social media or nothing. I choose not to look at those, even if there's any notifications or whatever. It's you going right to the important stuff, and then letting the rest of it filter throughout the day. So I would say that.
Again, I think it's huge, man, because I keep hearing, kind of over and over again, it's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
You have a choice on the kind of attitude you're going to have. You have a choice on the kind of day you're going to. You don't know what the level of pain is going to be that day. You don't know what the level of, but you do know that you have a choice whether to
and you're going to have bad days, and that's when
positive or be negative.
Exactly.
And I think that it's a big deal. You know, I think that is a lot of it. If you woke up every day and all you do is focus on the negative,
Correct.
That's all you'll ever see. You won't actually see. So the fact that you can, see the forest through the trees,
Yeah.
whatever, kind of a, however you want to put that, is big.
Yeah.
And I think that it is a choice, that we make every day.
Yeah.
I like what you said too about how, getting up and spending that intentional time with God, and now that you're doing this, kind of UV treatment or whatever it is with your hand, it's forcing you to sit still for a little while, and you go, okay, well, I could use this time to look at emails, the 1,000 emails I got, because you're still running a business, you're still running a family, you're still doing all these things, but actually taking that time to put God first. And I know that I'd heard something years ago that said the outcome of your day will almost always depend on how you start your day.
Yeah.
And so I kind of have the same practice. That's my first. I always give God the first part of my day. I say always. It's not true. I always try to. That's always my intention. And whenever I don't, I get into the day and I'm like, why is everything so hard? Why is everything so frustrating? Why is it going? Oh.
But you created that habit, and then that habit's
order.
ingrained, and you feel like you're missing it if you
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah.
And I would say I add one more thing that I did for a short amount of time, because I don't post a lot on social media or anything, but I actually used it as a positive thing because I was getting pretty down, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and do stories and posts with all good things. So I showed, what healthy food I was eating to recover, what I was taking as supplements, my routines in general, just to kind of get my mindset, because I was really felt myself kind of going the other way. And I'm like, I need to get some positivity. And it takes a lot of effort to post a lot of those stories all the time if you're not used to doing it, but it kind of got me in. I kind of utilized something that typically would be negative for a lot of people with social media, as a really good thing. For myself, I selfishly kind of did it for me. And a lot of people said they enjoyed watching the stories, but I find it a pain to always do them all the time, so I haven't been doing it lately. But I did do that for a short amount of time to kind of get my mind focused on like, hey, there's a million good things here. Like, let's go that route.
Right.
And it was almost like a public proclamation of accountability of like, this is something I'm doing because I need the accountability of saying these things.
Well, and you nailed it. I think a couple of things are one, social media, we all know the negative aspects of it. I mean, I can't tell you how many, and I'm not, if I'm going down my feed, looking through everything, I'm like, I just don't respond to the negative stuff. I don't feed into it because I think there's a pressure to feed into the negative.
I delete it so it doesn't keep showing up.
Right. So you either snooze it or block it, or it is toxic. So to actually have something there where you're inviting people into your story, which one is really cool. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of testimony and story, and I think that's how we grow and how others grow too. That you took that opportunity, one, to shed some positive light in a typically dark space, and then it was therapy for you. I think sometimes we process out loud, right? We process how things are going, and sometimes that's, getting from what's in our head and on paper or saying it out loud or whatever, that's therapy.
Yeah.
Right? It's so I think it's kind of twofold. I think therapy for you, inviting other people into your story, and then maybe just offering some encouragement for somebody that, oh my gosh, like here I am whining about something, and here's you going through what you're going through. Okay, all of a sudden my stuff doesn't look so bad. I can probably.
I've had a lot of people.
I think I need to make a choice to be positive today instead of negative.
They say that about me, and then I'm saying that about other people that I know have a lot worse than me to kind of keep my focus right. And they're like, well, I've been looking at you, and I had this ache and pain on my pinky finger that I was complaining about.
Big baby.
And then so it's kind of funny.
I think it is funny. Man, I mean, how much of a role? I don't know this question, but how much of a role has your family and others played into your recovery process, and how much value would you place on that support system?
First off, I mean, my wife, Jamie, she's been amazing. It's not easy to be doing the things she's doing, running our family right now, and having to help me on the little things that I can't do. on top of it, which is a lot because I haven't been driving for months. Because I've had to take different pain pills, different things, and I only have the use of one hand, and it's dangerous. So my wife and my family, my kids, my son Jake's been extremely helpful, and all the other little kids, I'm having to run errands, for me around the house.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's big, but not only that, but my immediate family, my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my wife's sisters, my brother-in-laws, my parents. My parents would run me to Vegas sometimes. That's been huge, but the biggest thing that was a surprise, not a surprise, but just overwhelming that I felt so grateful for was the city and my friends and across the United States through social media, through everything. And there's just been a huge outpouring of encouragement, checking up on me, seeing how I'm doing. Super encouraging, like totally helped me keep going. And I'm not through. I got months and months and months of rehab.
Right.
So I still need a lot of encouragement for all of you out there. So thank you.
Keep it coming, right?
Yeah, don't stop.
Keep it coming.
But anyway, I'm not over the hill yet on this thing, and I still have lots of susceptibility to infections and all kinds of problems still. But I don't know if I'm going to even be able to use my thumb yet. I don't know if I'm going to even be able to bend it much yet. We don't know. I might have to get more surgeries. I don't know. So at least I have it. So my point being, to wrap back into what you were saying, is yes, I could not do it. It's been amazing. And I will like to encourage, a lot of people may not have the support that I've had, so I encourage anybody out there. If you don't, that's why we have a church. That's why we have a family in Christ to help. And I think, and maybe this is jumping ahead to another question you have, but what this has done is not only given me a lot of vulnerability in Christian brothers' lives, because I've had to get myself down here to let them know I can't do it on my own, but it's gotten me to the point where I realize you need that encouragement. And if the purpose of having a body of Christ is to encourage others and to be there for them and pray for them and offer for them, and that's why we're here. If you don't have a lot of family and you don't have that same thing that I was lucky enough to have, pour into God, ask Him, reach out, ask for that help. Like, get out there and utilize the church to begin spreading the word for those needs, because you don't have to feel sorry for yourself. You can do something and ask and request that. So I feel like I wanted to make that point, because it's not everyone had all this family, and I realize not everybody's in that same boat. So that's been huge for me.
It's cool, man. I think sometimes we don't even realize, we take so many things for granted.
Yeah.
I say I know. Oh,
me too.
I take things for granted for sure. And so, and including my wife, my relationships there. And so, like you, I've had times and seasons in my life where, Amy's done the same things for me. And it takes your marriage to a whole new place.
Oh yeah.
And you realize
it's huge
what you're really made of.
Even going the couple of months, you even start losing bits of perspective during that time. Thank you for doing this small thing that I can't do. You gotta be very appreciative.
It's huge.
So
that's awesome, man. So we've probably talked about all of this too, but is there anything in particular you feel like God is teaching you during this process, or maybe just one or two takeaways that you feel like you're coming away with already, like just in your walk with Him? I'm just trying to show you this.
Yeah, I think the number one thing is compassion for others going through things. Mm-hmm. I've cried for other people hearing the recent accidents they've been in. Got emotional because I started thinking like what they're going through, and how I felt. And so it's also increased my prayer life for other people.
Huge.
That was a big takeaway. Taking focus off of myself, I think, on certain things. I was just starting to get into golf. I took 15 years and really didn't play much after I quit playing for a living, and I was just getting back into it. So now I can't. So now my focus goes to helping others, whether it's coaching or my kids, my son, or whatever, because he's getting into it. I was starting to get into it with him,
Right.
And that's been hard, I'm not gonna lie. But the takeaway is like, hey, here's an opportunity. Again, flip the script. Choose to think of what is a good thing here.
Yeah.
He has an opportunity to really increase his skills, and you can be there watching and helping. And in that, every one of my kids loves him because not all of them play golf or want to play golf, and I realize that. So trying to help them in other ways and seeing probably the deficiencies of standing out more as a father has been a takeaway of what gaps I need to fill more. You have more time to think. I had some deep time to think in the hospital in the COVID unit when I was in Flagstaff for 5 days. Had some good moments of clarity, which I think I needed. Kind of other takeaways, got back more into reading again, not only the word deeper, but like the different books and fictional, non-fictional, whatever, just growth books, stuff that would help in some way with somebody else. So those are all, that's more than a couple, but those are basic things.
That's cool, man. Because I think that anytime we go through anything, I've had so many conversations with you already. Like, man, if I come out of 2020, I haven't learned anything.
Yeah.
Like I need, and I shouldn't go forward yet. I think there's always, what are we learning in the process? What are we learning along the way? How are we being stretched? What are we, how is our perspective being changed? And sometimes we got to be knocked out of what normal is or whatever, so that we can see things from a different perspective or have a different appreciation. And it stinks that sometimes we have to go through traumatic events in our life or really dark dark places for that to happen. But I think the tragedy is if it doesn't happen. Like if you don't come away with some of those things you just shared, then oh my gosh, man, like we missed it.
Yeah.
And so that's encouraging to hear that you're coming away with more that's been taken away, right?
Yeah.
Like, yes, something is there's loss and there's grieving, there's things that are going to change and taken from you, but you at the same time have this amazing perspective on what you do have, and what you can actually gain from this. And so I think that's really cool.
I might not know the reasons why I went through this now or in the future or any time in my life, but trying to lean into those opportunities to grow from them. But what can I learn? Like, how can I grow? That's what I try to do.
Huge, man. Last thing, man, what advice would you offer through all this? What advice would you offer someone else who's going through a trial of their own, who's struggling, maybe going through a trauma? What encouragement can you offer everybody that's watching this right now? Like, if you give us a nugget, give us some gold, man.
I think I've said a couple of them, but to summarize it, I think it starts with getting your mindset in the morning, getting a routine, getting yourself on the right frame of mind of why you're going through that. That's one thing. Yeah. Obviously, depending on the Lord, asking for His wisdom. He might not show you right away what it is He wants you to see, but if you keep asking, He promises that He will show you. So if you feel like you're not getting the answers that you need, it's continuing to stay the course, stay the faith. Sometimes realizing that you might not ever know, maybe it's going to affect somebody in a positive way that you don't even know how, and you just have to rest in that. And also get connected and be vulnerable. You have to be willing to be vulnerable and not see it as a weakness. And you have to rely on others. And like I said, if you don't have the family, you have a church, and this church is there for. And finding a mentor is probably one of the last things I'd say. You got to really find somebody that's going to encourage you and you can talk to through those moments of doubt or anger, because we all have those.
Sure.
And you have to be willing to share that and maybe hear a different perspective, because sometimes you don't hear the terrible voices in your own head telling you all the terrible things that you should be doing that are wrong, the wrong way, I should say.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you need that other person to see that and give you a different perspective. So I'd probably say those in a nutshell.
Those are gold, man. Those are gold takeaways. So to really, lean in, be vulnerable, be transparent.
Yeah.
Get a mentor, get somebody that is going to speak truth into your life. I would say, man, if we don't have somebody in our life that's willing to speak truth into our life, that knows the real us and loves us enough to tell us the truth, then we need that person.
Yeah.
Because if we just have a lot of people that tell us what we want to hear, is just ear tickling, right? It's not, but to me, that's not heartbroken. I need people in my life to go, what was that? Dennis, that is not you, bro. So those are awesome, man. Scotty, that's gold. Your testimony, your story, man, inspiring. What you're doing with that. There's so much good stuff there to glean from. Everything you've shared with us today. Thanks for having the courage to share your story and being open with us. And like you said, I think that there's the transparency and the vulnerability is not weakness. It's actually strength. And inviting God into that process, who is the source of all of our strength. I think it's a different perspective. For a lot of people that our tendency to withdraw instead of lean in. And so you sharing today about the risk of leaning in, the risk of being vulnerable is worth it because good for the outcome. And thanks for setting an example. Like I said, man, that story with your boys and that was really cool to me, and for being that positive light and sharing positive stuff on social media when it was so easy to go the other direction. And lastly, man, thanks for being a man of God character in a world where good character just doesn't cut it anymore. That's big. Man, thanks for your friendship.
Absolutely.
Thanks for inviting us into your home.
Yeah, we've been trying to do this for a while. And, maybe I just needed to get in an accident to make it all happen.
it was timing's everything,
Yeah,
man.
exactly.
So if this is what it takes, then that's cool. So, man, I just can't thank you enough, man. This has been awesome. Thanks for the coffee. And good coffee, great conversation, man. So, and thank all of you for joining us here today, for being a part of this conversation with us. I hope you take away even just a little bit of what I've taken away from this conversation today, and that you learned about vulnerability, transparency, leaning in, not withdrawing, and that we can claim victory in Christ through all life circumstances. So stay tuned for future episodes. Until then, keep the conversations going, and as always, be strong and courageous.
Thanks,
Have an
everybody.
awesome day.